the company I worked at the time didn't include me in that process. So they basically took my darling and had me, shut up, sit down, and do your job kind of thing. That did make me really bitter.
Yeah.
But that was more of a, losing, the creative ownership that I thought I had. It was kind of the turning point. The only time I've been nearly depressed enough to apply for jobs outside the industry. It's still definitely the low point.
All right, Martin Annander, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. I thought we start with if you could tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry.
So I got into the games industry. I always wanted to make games ever since I was 10, but I never thought it was an actual job. So for a very long time, I studied journalism. I worked very briefly as a journalist. I didn't think it was a job you could have. But then I didn't get the journalist job that I was applying for. And then I thought, okay, I might go to school. And I chose game education. But this is 2005. And after that, I was brought down to Simbin, which was my first game job in Gothenburg. And I've been at it ever since. So this is my 19th year.
Okay. So can you tell us anything more about your career so far after Simbin?
So I went to Simbin, but they made racing simulators, which is pretty much the only type of game I don't play. So pretty much off the bat, I felt I wanted to do something else, even if I liked the company and the people. And I had a lot of different things I got to do, like QA and so on. But then I went to Starbreeze and worked on Chronicles of Riddick: Dark Athena as a gameplay designer. And Syndicate. We also worked briefly on a Jason Bourne game that was cancelled.
And then EA, right?
Yeah, that's right. And this is in 2010, 11, somewhere around there. Syndicate was released in 2012. And then I left Starbreeze. I went to Stardoll Mobile Games. I was there for a while. I went to another place called Gaming Core just for 6 months, where we made Riddick the Merge Files, which was a mobile game. So Riddick again, in just 10 weeks. And then I ran a small studio for a Korean company making kids games. And I've been many different places. Eventually I found my way to where I'm doing now, which is a freelancer in systemic design specifically, because that's something I picked up on the way.
Got it. Thanks. And how would you describe your role in the sort of creative process of game making or shipping a game?
So this has varied through the years, but I would say the past few years it's been leadership of different types. So I've been a design lead, I've been a small studio director, so a lot of leadership roles, and also design later leadership roles. So my part of the creative process has been design primarily.
Okay. Do you remember the first time that you were part of a team or an effort where creative collaboration played a part?
Yeah, this actually goes back to when I was studying game design. But I was thinking about that when I read the question, is because we had projects like you do in many of these schools.
Yeah.
So vocational school, and you bundle a bunch of students who barely know each other together, and they are supposed to make a game in just a few weeks. I don't remember if it was 4 weeks or 5 weeks, something like it. And I loved it. I just thought it was so much fun, and seeing sort of what happens when you put all of these creative minds onto a single task. So I think that it was probably the first time I felt, yeah, this is what I should be doing.
Okay. So anything specific that comes to mind?
So we had a game that was, game's not great when I look at it today, but we made a game that was Legacy, which was like a spaceship game, flying around, shooting at enemy ships. And we had a bunch of pillars, I would call them today. One of them was high-tech, low-tech. So we used that as an expression, like it was, okay, it should be high-tech, low-tech. Something that looks low-tech that does high-tech things. And we used that, and everyone sort of understood what it meant, or at least joked about it.
Everyone thought they understood.
Exactly. And that's kind of been how it's been for the rest of my career as well. It's like you have these things to latch on to, but it's not always as clear as maybe it should be.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. What does creative collaboration mean to you personally? You're a designer, so I guess that's a creative in a way, but it's not like an artist or something that's,
Yeah.
traditional creative.
No, I think creativity to a large extent is about ramifications. Like you can do anything, but it has to fit this specific thing, high tech, low tech, or it has to fit with a game you're making, or it has to fit with something else. So I actually think that creativity is at its best when there's some limitations. And those limitations, obviously, they can be because you signed a contract with the publishers expecting something, but it can also be simply because you have a week to deliver something, or you want to fit it within some other kinds of constraints. But I actually think constraints are the mother of a lot of creativity.
Okay, interesting. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. So for example, when we worked on Syndicate, we could only have 8 enemies. That was a restriction of the technology. We can only have 8 enemies. This is 360 PS3. They were quite expensive to do, and we felt that was a catastrophe. Like players are immediately going to see that this is a problem. But what we did was we tried a few different ways. We decreased their health, so now they died really fast, and then we respawned them really fast instead. And then we started asking them in focus tests, like, how many enemies do you think there were? And we actually had someone answer 30. Because it turns out I think it's called Miller's law, but it's in short-term memory, you can keep 7 ± 2 things. So 8 hits the sweet spot pretty much. And we didn't know that beforehand, but working with that limitation actually made us make the game better, because we were so afraid of this limitation that we just sort of force everything to be a higher pace.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we've had other guests on the show as well talk about like how creativity works best in a box or in some kind of constraints as well. So I guess that makes sense. Was there any collaborative part to that sort of? It wasn't your decision, but you talk about having that constraint mothered some creativity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say the collaborative part was mixing all the disciplines and figuring out like how many enemies could we render, can we like the fact that we had the limitation, that was obviously the programmers, and specifically the console restrictions at the time. But I definitely think that the programmers and everyone on that team, the team was quite small within the rest of the team, and the programmers and everyone, they had to sort of co-design this thing. So it was definitely a very collaborative environment. I think one of the better teams when it comes to that I worked on, simply because we then pushed it down to the test kits, tested it, saw if it worked. If it didn't work, we had a good conversation about it.
Yeah. So the solution was essentially the respawning, and that made it actually work.
Yeah. And decreasing health, making it so that it was really fast, and then no one noticed the limitation.
Yeah. So you rather did that than, for example, downres the actual models.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of restrictions we had from production. I'm not as sure about this, but I think we had to use the same assets as single player team did, because they had been working on the game for a couple of years, and we only had like a year or so to build the co-op. So we had those restrictions too. We couldn't really touch it. We didn't have the resources to rework the assets. So this was the toolbox we had. And so that was one of the projects I worked on that was really benefiting from those limitations.
That's cool. And this is something I ask all my guests, but do you think being a good collaborator is something that you were born with, or something that you learn over time?
I think certainly in my case, it's something I learned over time, simply because a lot of the time when you start in a creative process and you have this really great idea and someone tells you that doesn't work, or I have another idea, you can be a bit defensive. And I think that is very common among game developers, junior game developers especially. But once you realize that actually what they're saying is better, or what you came to think about when they said it is even better, like the combination of minds just empowers everything.
Just riffing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I definitely think, but I do think it's something you learn. Some people are definitely less defensive and less sort of in love with their own ideas and can collaborate more easily. And for me, it was probably sort of tabletop role playing was a huge part of my background, and that is very collaborative. So I think part of it was just that, like I liked the process of it.
Yeah, and sort of on the same topic, What do you think is the right balance between individual creativity and team alignment to build something really,
So
really
thinking
great?
about like specialists and those types.
Yeah, but I mean also based on what you just said, essentially like the collaborative process where you might have to kill your darling, if you will. But I would, well, at least my assumption is that, you know, really great creative people also are pretty strong-minded about their idea because it requires some push through to realize. So you have maybe a super creative person, maybe a well-known developer or designer or something else, right? But to create the collaborative environment, obviously, there's a give and take. So do you think, oh, well, maybe it's hard to answer, but is there a balance perhaps? And
I think you need people who are decision makers. That's where this gets tricky sometimes, because you can have this collaborative, super fun time, and that is you don't want it to end, but it has to end at some point. And that's where I think not necessarily ego, but definitely more of a decisive kind of voice needs to come in and say, this is what we do. We can't do this now. We can save this for the expansion or whatever.
yeah,
But you actually have to have that decisive voice at some point. And you need, and the best thing there is if you know upfront who that's going to be, and then the collaborative effort is fine, but then you have to sort of defer to the decision maker.
Okay, yeah. So I guess there's like there's got to be an end to the brainstorming part, and then you get to work. That makes sense.
No, and I've seen this in many different companies because I'm freelancing, because I've been at many different places. One common thing is that you sort of get you can sometimes end up in a situation where you talk about a thing and it feels like talking about it is enough, right? So you don't actually get any progress done, but you have another meeting, and then you book another meeting, and another meeting, and another meeting, and you keep talking about the thing, and that's, I don't know if it tickles the same part of the brain as doing something, but for some types of people, it means that it can go on forever.
Yeah,
and I've seen that in many different sizes of team, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's obviously a collaborative effort.
Yeah,
but hopefully the collaborative effort doesn't stop when you make a decision and get done. So what do you think about that?
I think actually something I do not like in AAA, how it's often structured, especially today when companies can be a couple of thousand people, is that you can have someone be the, undergrowth vegetation artist specialist. They only do that specific thing, like specific plant even. I don't know the level of specialization. But what that means is that person is not going to sit there and play the game and think about, oh, but this doesn't fit because it's too high resolution when the other stuff is not, for example. So you lose the whole image of the game. And in my opinion, that is actually a problem, because that's when you lose the collaborative effort. Everyone has to be working on the game to some extent, because then you can start to see, like, even if you're an artist or a programmer, whoever you are, and you're playing the game and you see something related to someone else's work that you think has a problem, of course you should tell it to someone, report it as a bug, or whichever structures you have. So I think that's when you lose some of that collaborative thing, when everyone's just head down, task on their screen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if you're not involved in a collaborative process, there is no collaborative process.
Exactly. No,
Yeah,
of course.
That makes sense. Yeah. So in your career, can you name a project where sort of the culture really brought about a nice collaborative environment?
This is such a great question. I really liked it when people are, I mean, especially in small teams, when you hire someone and they're an expert at their thing, and you basically set them loose to do their thing. So we had a small team a couple of years ago, just a couple of programmers. One of them built a DevOps pipeline. One of them was experimenting with gameplay. And then we would have meetings every now and then to show cool shit. And I thought that was extremely collaborative. And then just to sort of keep people inspired by the same things, we would sometimes have watch a GDC talk together and talk about it, or just like, aligned around certain subjects.
Mhm.
So I thought that was extremely collaborative. And the downside, obviously, then is that I don't think in that team we had a problem. We didn't have a director. Like no one was actually taking charge of the product. So that was the downside of it. But it's definitely one of the most collaborative experiences I've had because everyone was contributing to the game. We just never figured out what it was.
Yeah, that might help a little bit. I think. I mean, again, one of the questions we're sort of trying to answer is if you're trying to do something that's so hard and complex as shipping a successful game,
Yeah,
then obviously that needs to be part of it.
it needs to be. It needs to be. And I mean, I think that this is also a problem of sort of why do you get into this industry? Because a lot of people, they dream about this game they want to make, but they might dream about the feature or the story or some isolated part. They don't dream about the product because that is boring, right? For a lot of people, a lot of creatives, they don't really see that. Like they want to work, on the task on their screen, but you actually have to have someone who thinks product.
Yeah,
It has to become a product at some point.
yes, and that's when then do you think commercial voices should be sort of let into the discussion or in the creative process?
Yeah, I mean this is certainly the trickiest. I mean, in finance, you talk about smart money, right? So the publisher or investor or whoever comes in and sort of has a different type of stake, they should come in when they're needed. And that's going to obviously vary based on which team you're in. I mean, in a team that has no product experience, probably they should be part of it really early on. But in a team where they have product experience and they know what they want to do, maybe they would get more in the way, right? Unless there's very specific things they need done. But it's a tricky question to answer because I think it depends so much on the relationship right there. So probably the best answer is work on the relationship right away, but then how that actually develops has to be based on the talents involved.
Okay, and when you say work on the relationship, it's so that when they do enter the conversation, it's not going to be, who's this guy?
No, and also, I mean, definitely familiarity, but also no surprises. So no one's going to tell you 2 weeks before GDC, hey, are you going to show the trailer we talked about? Which trailer? You never mentioned the trailer. This happens all the time. And that's because of miscommunication, right? So if you have that relationship, you have a working relationship, you can talk to people about everything and they can sort of give you those expectations beforehand. Perfect.
Yeah. So can you walk us through a project where cross-disciplinary collaboration really worked? It could be between, traditional cat and dog disciplines like creative and marketing or something like that.
So I really liked, this was more production, like development or related, but when I was at Toadman, we had a task force set up. So we wanted to add a scoring system to a game. So you would get points per kills and you would sort of compete with your friends in a co-op game. And so we put a task force together. I don't remember the exact composition, but it was a programmer who would implement it, effects artist. We had a bunch of people who were making the things and could also make really fast decisions about them. And then we met every day or every other day just to see the progress we made and said, you're going to do this today, this today, this today. We did this for a number of weeks and had great results, I would say, because there was such a short process for making a decision and everyone in the room knew what they had to do, right? So I love that type of process where you have the task force, everyone who needs to be in the room is in the room. We can make all decisions now. That's really great, I think. But also maybe a scoring system is one of those things that is easily isolated. But I know at Starbreeze for the Bournes project, they had a similar setup that I was not involved in, but that was for the gunplay, how they developed the gunplay. They also had a task force like this, or a strike team, or a cabal, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So do you think that setup would work as well in a remote setup?
I actually do. I do. I think it would work in a remote setup. I think what's required for a remote setup is regular check-ins, just to talk to people, and also actually developer health, just mental health, because isolation can actually have consequences of another kind as well.
Yeah.
But also having these, watching a GDC talk together and discussing it, watching a movie together. like watching it at the same time in different places, obviously, but still sort of emulating those types of social things. I think that really helps because then you can sort of align around common experiences.
Okay. So what about the opposite, not opposite of remote, but opposite of a project where cross-disciplinary things worked out? So i.e. when it really went belly up.
I mean, I'm not going to mention companies in this context, but I've seen so many times where you have these, basically set up walls between departments.
Silos.
Exactly, silos. So the animators are not going to talk to you except through the associate producer, or you have these, and they can be purely disciplinary. So you actually have craft separated. They can also be individual. So this person doesn't want to talk to that person, or that person doesn't want to go to meetings with this person, or like you can have all these really complex things going on that are really outside of development. I would say personal relationships and then just company culture around department silos. That's probably the biggest causes I've seen to break down collaboration.
Okay. I mean, this is very hard to answer, obviously, but what would be your solution to fix that problem?
I mean, the short answer is hire the right people. I mean, and actually, if someone is really not working and they're causing toxic problems, that kind of thing, get rid of them if you can. I mean, that depends on where you're located. In Sweden, it can be hard to let someone go, but you can give them different tasks. You can move them to a different team. I actually think that personal chemistry, especially games that tend to sometimes be sort of high stress environments, if you have personal chemistry problems of any kind at any level, they can blow up so much, and they will ruin creative collaboration. So because I saw someone suggesting that 90 to 95% of the game budget is staff.
Yeah, it's a very labor intensive
so
industry, of course.
So if you have people who are not working out, don't have people not work out.
Yeah. And how do you personally sort of approach other disciplines, if you will, when you, I wouldn't say have to work, but when you're
forced to go outside your silo.
When work includes interacting with another department or a discipline.
So since I'm a game designer mostly, I think this is really where game design is sort of where we do our best job, communicating. Like, why is this a good idea? Well, because this and that. Because I think that one of the things I've been doing a lot through the years is figuring out what this person needs to hear. Not what they want to hear, what they need to hear. So if I go to the programmer and I start talking about the Tower of the Elves and the invasion of the demons and the narrative stuff, their all eyes will glaze over and they're like, all right, so should you player press X or B?
Yeah.
And at the other end of the spectrum, if I go to the narrative team and I talk about the X and B button, they're like, okay, whatever. What about the elves?
Yeah.
So just knowing who you're talking to and therefore which context they need.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what Jerome from Saber said about finding the why in everything. Like, why are we doing this? And if everyone understands why we're doing that, it makes it a lot easier to get everyone.
Yeah, and that is one thing. And I think that second part of this is respect people's expertise. So for example, I love asking people like if they are very critical about something, like I don't think this is a good idea. Anything like that. It's quite common that people are critical, depending on company culture again. Then I'll ask, okay, so what do you suggest? What do you think we should do? How can we approach this? We need to deliver A. How would you approach that? And if they have a good suggestion, then run with it. Because I think that is what leadership is often about, and what communication is often about, is to not just sort of respect an opinion, but also, act on it. And I mean, obviously, sometimes it's not going to work because it's going to take 3 months and you have 2 weeks. But I think a lot of the time, just listening to people and sort of bouncing the question back to them, it empowers people in a subtle way.
Yeah.
And that's something I really believe in when it comes to leadership.
That makes sense. And can you tell us about a situation where team members strongly disagreed about like a creative issue, if you will, and was there a solution?
So
what's the effect?
I'm personally one of those people disagree with. So I've been in these situations many times in my life. It's I'm trying to remember the word they used, but I've been called conflict prone.
Oh wow, you're a troublemaker.
Yeah, troublemaker. But yeah, so usually I would say that a creative conflict is going to be about references, often in game design, like, oh, but I don't know, Dark Souls doesn't do this, or that game doesn't do that, or, and I don't like those types of conversations because they rarely, like, I'm going to use an example, I'm not going to say from where, but basically we had a game, it's a first-person shooter, you're playing a supernatural character, and we didn't have a sprint button because you play a supernatural character, you move fast all the time. And then someone added a long corridor, and the team started asking for a sprint button. I said, that's not the problem. The problem is the long corridor. That is eventless, right? You can see that it's far, then you want that boost of speed. So this is how you shouldn't handle a conflict, by the way. So then I was told, no, add the sprint. So the sprint was added, but I set its speed to be exactly the same as the movement speed before. It was just that you had a field of view effect or stuff like that. And then someone said, oh, that's great. Now it feels better. And then I left it in for some time. And then I told them I had done this, and they were furious, likely so. But I wanted to make the point that it's not actually the speed you're moving at. It's the problem. So sorry, if that's a bad example. That's how you shouldn't do things.
But you made a point by not sticking to protocol. But
yeah.
So, but did it stay?
We did have sprint in the game.
Okay.
So I had to decrease. Yeah, it was. But I mean, but then the decision was made. That is fine. I think having a conflict. So maybe that is a better answer then. I think it's fine to have a conflict. It's fine to sort of, try to die on a hill sometimes. Just don't, continue dying there if you lose. So that's probably a good lesson.
Yeah, that's sort of the definition of insanity again, right? But yeah, that's interesting. I think lost my train of thought. But I mean, obviously, So in something creative, and again, in an environment such as game development, where you have all these disciplines, again, like if you don't have conflict, it would be weird. And then you're probably not. I mean, this is just me, but maybe not pushing hard enough for what you want to build or how creative you want to be.
Yeah. No, and one thing that I think works sometimes with conflicts as well is that you can zoom in or zoom out. So if you're talking about, this super high level thing, the world building or something, and you're arguing about that, zoom into a mechanical thing and discuss that for a bit. Try to find common ground somewhere else, and then it's going to be easier to talk about the bigger stuff, or vice versa. So if you get stuck talking about the mechanics, talk about the high level stuff for a while. I mean, find a common ground somewhere else, and then it's easier to talk.
Yeah, I guess it also depends on how you define conflict. Yeah. If it's like the end of the world, or if it's something on the way that could actually spring more creativity, or
very true. Like we were talking about before. I mean, sometimes you just have a personal conflict, like two people who cannot,
Yeah, no, and that's obviously different. But I mean, both of us are from Sweden as well, where a conflict is a bad thing. Yeah. Where I think in a lot of other cultures, it's just like, life.
Yeah,
it's just a normal day.
That is a good point, because I mean, I actually think conflict is kind of crucial for a collaborative environment. You have to be able to disagree, because if you're not able to disagree, then there's just going to be, either there's a committee deciding everything, or you're just waiting for the person with the highest rank to tell you what to do. And both of those situations are not going to give you the best thing you can make.
No, the yay sayer thing hasn't proved to be great for anyone, I think.
Yeah, no, but at the same time, I mean, pick your battles. Like, maybe it doesn't matter too much if this texture is slightly green or slightly blue. Like, maybe that is important or feels important, but it's probably not important. So try to figure out. When I was called conflict prone troublemaker, I had an exercise, because I was basically just babbling all the time. And I had an exercise I started doing myself, and I noted down what I was going to say, and I waited for 5 minutes, and then I read it. And I realized quite quickly that there was so much of the stuff I just wanted to blurt out that was not actually terribly necessary. Like, it was just
it's not very
noise. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that taught me a lot about myself, but it was also actually a very useful exercise that I can still use sometimes when I'm stressed.
Yeah. I think most people have penned angry emails.
Yeah.
That, if you wait and read it again, you won't send, or maybe at least edit a little bit.
You just need to get it out.
Yeah. So that's a safe bet. All right. So moving on a little bit, are there any tools, workflows, or structure that you found particularly helpful for creative collaboration?
I'm really fond of, so David Marquette is one of these agile coaches. He's written a book called Turn the Ship Around. But one of his comments, I think I quote it all the time: put the authority where the information is. Because I think that's something that frustrates me, at least sometimes in collaborative environments. For example, if you're a very technical person, so you're working on, I don't know, some system you're writing the code for, it's having to explain it to people. So if you're working on this super technical thing, it's going to take 2 weeks to do, and then you're spending 3 weeks in meetings with direction because you have to convince them it's worth doing. That type of thing is extremely frustrating. So put the authority where the information is means if the programmer tells you this is important, and you don't have to understand, they're telling you it's important. So then they have the authority to prioritize it. As long as it doesn't break, deliverables and other requirements that they have, you should trust them. And I think that this goes back to, again, like hiring the right people. If you hire experts and people you trust, actually trust them. Give them that authority. I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see this from directors, that they think that they have to have a say in everything. So if they don't actually have something to say in a meeting, they'll invent something to say. But what about the goblin over there? Or they just have to say something.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually just stressful, and often it doesn't lead to anything. It's just like almost as a reminder that this person is the director. I don't like that. So just trusting people, having check-ins, evaluating what they're doing, and empowering people. I think that's a combination I like.
Okay. Any tools or other help that you found helpful?
So you're talking about like digital tools?
Yeah. For example, especially in a collaborative environment, like there are so many whiteboard solutions and things like that.
Game designers swear by Miro usually. So.
Yeah.
I'm actually really fond of Trello. Just having these lists of cards. Each card can be a single thing. It can be a task or a design thing or something else. Just being able to list things, bullet points.
Yeah.
Simple one text thing. I like the concept of facts. So design pillars is more high level, but a fact is something everyone has agreed on. So that can be listed as a bullet point. So for example, player can carry 3 weapons. Player's name is Todd. Whatever it might be. Yeah. If we've agreed on something, then we can make it a fact and we can refer back to it. No, but we agreed on this.
Yeah.
Speaking of conflicts before,
yeah. Right? No, for sure. But so obviously we're not here to plug tools. So I guess my follow-up would be with those kind of tools, like you mentioned Trello and Miro. It's like what is the benefit? It's the benefit that you can have common ground.
Yeah.
For example, anyone can look up the why, or the fact in this case.
Exactly. The facts can be found. Everyone knows where to look. I think Miro is often just a kind of a mind map thing where you're building it as you're talking, and then it becomes a common ground for the people who are in that meeting. But it becomes indecipherable for anyone who wasn't. But
got it.
But yeah, it's a tool that is very much used everywhere, as far as I know.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of rituals and routines help the teams that you work with stay creatively connected? It's related, obviously.
I quite like just having quick daily check-ins. What did you do yesterday? What are you working on? Kind of like a stand-up, but more focused. So I'm at Arrowhead right now. We're doing this quite a lot, and I quite like it. So now we have a specific project for delivering this thing. We're going to have check-ins for this every day, minus the meeting-free days if you have them. And then just see if it's working. And if no one has anything new to share, it's still just a quick check-in. Hi, how are you? And then we end it in 5 minutes. But having those check-ins, I really like that ritual of it, actually. Maybe it's because I work remote myself, but just to see some faces.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a good thing just to keep it going, sort of. And then you can invite extra people if you need some more expertise, or you need a director to chime in or something like that.
Okay. So that's almost like a little task group.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe just for one daily meeting.
So task forces are my silver bullet for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the concept as well. All right. So with more teams working remotely or hybrid, I mean, you yourself, obviously, how do you keep that shared creative energy alive from a distance, do you think?
I think the daily check-ins is one of those tools, but I think this is certainly the tricky bit, because some people I know, I mean, I have good friends who've worked remote for a long time, even before the pandemic. And I mean, in some cases, it's because they are socially awkward, or they actually prefer not to be among people.
Mm.
And then they kind of use it a bit to stay away. But to make it work, I think you have to just know everyone's place in it, sort of. So having these daily check-ins, having some social things, watching a GDC talk together, like these things that I mentioned, I think that is how I would approach it. But that's also, tailored to me. So it is tricky. But I actually think that. So one thing we talked about with a couple of friends, we were talking about starting a studio at one point a couple of years ago, and one thing we realized is that we were kind of sick of selling your time. That there's always an actual value to each hour that you work. Because I mean, some days I can work 12 hours. And some days I just want to sleep in or take a slow morning. And that is something that remote empowers, like being able to work as much or as little as needed. So I think there's something there to explore. Instead of selling your time, selling the deliveries that you make. But that's more speculative. It's not an answer.
That's fine. That's what we're here for, I think. So what's a mistake or tough lesson you've learned about collaboration during your time in the industry?
I think this goes back a little bit to people. There's going to be people you cannot work with because they don't like you, because you don't like them, because you just have disagree on everything, or because of something. Like it can simply be personal chemistry at the end of the day. And for a long time, I would try to make it work. I would try to change things. I would try to figure out ways around it. But I realized through the years that if you encounter that, and it is extremely rare, I have to add, I think you have to accept it. Like this is not going to work. It's better to move on, or at least have a very open conversation with this person about it. So I think that is one of the hardest lessons I've learned. Like if it's not working, it could actually be a personal thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned to me earlier that if you have like a wet blanket or a toxic person, horrible when you say it out loud, but I mean, and if you're in let's say leadership or executive position, you can always, let that person go, or find something else to do.
And I mean, at the other end of it too, you could figure out that you are the toxic person.
Yeah.
Like I mean, honestly, because I worked in one team where there was a very specific dynamic at play, and I wanted to do something differently. And I just realized after a while that because I was trying so hard to make things differently and trying to force people to do things my way, but eventually I just had to realize, no, I am the one that doesn't fit in here.
Yeah.
I am the problem here. Yeah. The reason there's so much friction is me. And that is probably one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn, because it's like, all right, cool. So that means either I have to change how I think here just to be professional, because you have to, or I should move on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what was going to be my point, because if you're not in a position where you can in plain English, get rid of the person that you believe is the problem, you still have a job to do in a professional setting, right?
Exactly.
So, but if you tried working with that person and it doesn't work out, I guess you're just left with, leaving.
Yeah.
And of course, I wouldn't say helps, but maybe that it helps to realize that you're the problem in this case, but at least then you're addressing the issue.
Yeah, and then I think that you have to be able to make that realization as well, just from a personal maturity perspective. If I had kept insisting, I would have been miserable at the end of the day. Yeah. Instead, I had this realization and I did move on. And I mean, obviously right now with the state of the industry, maybe it's not too easy to move on, but then you have to be professional about it, and find a way for it to work. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good segue into a related question. Have you ever had to kill your darling because of like team input or other?
Many times.
Yeah.
Many times. And I actually think that the more you do, the better in a way. And sometimes you're not killing them, you're leaving them behind. You had this great idea for something, and then I mean you're still gonna have the great idea. It just didn't fit here.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I think that the game will tell you what's needed, and that's probably a weird designer way of thinking. But I mean, finding the fun and all these types of things, I still believe in that. Like, if you play the game and the feature you have insisted on for 4 weeks actually kind of sucks, listen to that, right? Don't insist on it, because I think that is a disservice to yourself and to everyone else.
Probably to the game as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, that's a good point. Any examples that you remember or wanna?
Oh wow, killing my darlings. I'm drawing a blank, and
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's all these things at a small stage where an encounter I made didn't work out and was removed, or a piece of dialogue that was written that didn't work out, or smaller, day-to-day decisions. But bigger ones. I mean, I was part of the whole pitching processes for big games that was never made, and spent weeks of time just pouring my heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
To the world's union, to the world's ignorance.
Yeah. I mean, that word cold and hard.
But I think that is also good, because I mean, your enthusiasm is only part of it. Like it actually has to be a thing.
Yeah. No, but it's obviously it wasn't. I mean, if you had that one darling that you had to kill, then you'd probably still be bitter about it. Would remembered it right away. I think.
Yeah, that is very true.
So I guess that's you got away easy.
I mean, there are definitely some of these pitches I still think about sometimes, like games I would have loved to make. But it's true, it's not the same thing. Like, it would have been a different thing if you had well, actually, yeah. What I'm thinking about, because I did pitch a game. It was successful. It was never signed though, but it was successful enough. There was a prototype and additional pitching done, and the company I worked at the time didn't include me in that process. So they basically took my darling and had me, shut up, sit down, and do your job, kind of thing.
Okay.
And that did make me really bitter.
Yeah.
To say, but that was more of a losing the creative ownership that I thought I had. So not as much killing a darling.
No, more resentment and bitterness and chip on your shoulder.
Oh, that's a good thing you have over there. Like stealing candy from.
Yeah. I mean, that must happen a lot, I guess. Hopefully not, but it feels like it's.
Yeah, probably it probably does. It was just like I think for me it was kind of the turning point. The only time I've been nearly depressed enough to apply for jobs outside the industry, like maybe games are not for me. And I mean, this is over 10 years ago, but it's still definitely the low point.
That speaks volumes, I think. I think a common theme is where we don't understand how lucky we are to be in this industry.
Yeah.
And it always starts with, I always wanted to be in games, or I didn't know you could work in games. As you said, essentially, but wow, you can do that for a living.
Yeah. I mean, still surprised sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, so what advice would you give someone that's new to the industry in regards to what we've been talking about, like how to collaborate with others, with creatives?
I'm gonna steal a piece of advice. I don't remember the name, but there's a Dutch developer. He's made Bulwark and these really good flying games. An indie developer. Get out of your fandom.
Okay.
And I love that piece of advice, because what it means is, don't just make your own Dark Souls version. Don't just make Call of Duty, but with an extra gun. Don't make GTA in space. I mean, over ambitious stuff with a twist. Get out of your fandom and figure out your own creative identity, what that means. Like the specializations you care about, what kind of games you want to play. Find an identity in your ideas. And this is hard.
Oh yeah,
it's so much easier to say I'm gonna make an ARPG with spaceships. Just take abbreviations or fandom things. I really like Star Wars. I will make something like Star Wars.
Yeah, but I think that's it. Excuse me. That's a bigger question, because I think if everyone knew that or found that, maybe we wouldn't have so many similar games and
No, I
so
mean-
much oversaturation.
No, but that's why I think it's good advice, because it's extremely hard.
Yeah.
Super hard.
Yeah.
Like it's taken me almost 20 years to know what I want to do. I really care about systemic stuff, the type of game I grew up with. So it's in a way actually just zooming in on the fandom. So not even taking the advice. But I do think that sort of getting out of just speaking in abbreviations and other games, I think that is a very good exercise for your creativity. Like, what does this mean? Who is the player? I mean, who is the player portraying? Why would they care about this thing? Like all of those aspects of the game you're making, not just the feature or the world building or whatever.
Yeah. And if we drill down a little bit to the collaborative part, so like say you're just fresh off the boat from a game education or something like that, you managed to get hired and you're thrown into a team that's, diversified and have all these different disciplines. What's a couple of good things to think about?
As a new junior.
Yeah. And just like how you're going to get along with, and not on a personal level, but
Let's hope that works.
Let's hope they hired the right person.
Exactly. No, I think probably as a junior, if it's a big company, you're going to have a specific role. You're going to be hungry in that role. In a more senior position, I don't know, it's different. It can be different. You might be hired as a specialist, but when you're new, before you're a specialist, do as much as you can. Like try everything. Be open to everything. Like be hungry. I think that is really the best thing you can offer as someone new. I mean, question things within reason. I mean, really, like, why do you do things like this? Why do you use this old tool that already works? Why? I mean, because just having a pair of fresh eyes actually has a lot of value sometimes.
So you think it's just having the guts, so to speak, to maybe question something, even though you're new?
Definitely, and I think with the caveat, that's going to work in some company cultures. It's not going to work in others. So you definitely have to be good at reading the room.
Yeah, but this has also been a topic earlier where I think, expressing something should always be okay, but obviously it's up to you as a professional to do it in a way where you don't like set off all the alarms. So I guess that makes sense.
Sure.
And this might be tricky, but how do you think creative collaboration in game development will change in like the next 5-10 years, if at all?
I think it's going to change. I think that, a lot of executives right now believe they can replace people with AI, for example, potentially. I do think AI is here to stay as a tool. I think we're going to see more small-ish creative teams that can still punch way above their weight thanks to all these tools that are coming on. Not just AI, but animation automation, and just automation in general. There's a lot of really cool tooling being built. So I think it's realistic to see more 15, 20, 30 people studios building really high quality games. And then actually hopefully taking more of the money, because the sort of traditional publishing model is also kind of losing relevance. Because plugin publishers sometimes, some of them don't want to front the money. They want you to have your game pretty much built already. So then why do I talk to them? And they're going to use the same, online resources, same influencers, the same networks that you could use yourself. A lot of work, but maybe also that sort of ties into, more outsourcing, more agents, more specialists for hire in general. So I do think it's going to be more maybe like I imagine film being, where you hire this camera person and this script writer. And
it's all freelance.
Exactly. I think I could definitely see that happening to games.
Okay. So how do you think that will change the collaborative nature? In a way, obviously collaboration is easier because you're a smaller team, but anything specific that you think will...
It does change collaboration in a pretty potentially then profound way, in the sense that you're going to have this 10, 15 creative team, and they are going to be the collaborators. You get hired for your skills. So, Mr. Person, level designer, make this level for us according to these exact specs. That's not very creative for that level designer, but it's still, so that could be the other side of it. Like many more small teams that can be sustainable, but as a specialist, you're a gun for hire.
Yeah, but I think it also puts more pressure on, let's call it the core organization, to be, or support the collaborative efforts where you have to. I mean, obviously you have 10 freelancers, you have to keep track of them, and then now everything that we do individually has to align.
Yeah.
Do you think there's the danger, or do you think there's a benefit potentially?
I think there are many benefits to this. I mean, not least of all, if you can already see all these outsourcing studios that are successful today, and they can build their own games as well. So they outsource their personnel, and they make some money, and they can build their own games. So they sort of have an independence you don't really have today, or traditionally at least, where you were really reliant on external money to even make a game. But today you could actually have some form of sustainability from being a hired gun, and then actually maybe pay part of the bills yourself. And so I think it empowers everyone involved in this process, but it's also obviously going to be extremely rough before it gets better.
Yeah. Okay. And if you could change one thing in terms of like how collaboration is done, so to speak, in the industry today, what would that be?
So this is the time where I plug my fanaticism for systemic design. I want people to let go more. And what that means is that instead of saying, okay, player enters here, a thing happens, enemies spawn here, they kill the enemies, like instead of writing scripts, I want more developers to explore systems and just sort of let the player be the person who explores things. Because that is one of the main strengths of our medium. We make interactive stuff. And so that's actually something I want to see more of, and more teams embrace.
Okay.
I know it feels risky for a lot of people, and because they want to have that creative control. But remember that in this creative collaboration, the player is also a part of it.
Yeah.
And great quote by Mark Rosewater, designer of Magic the Gathering for 20 years. We don't make the synergies. We make the tools for the players to find them with.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Minecraft and Roblox generations, that's what they will expect.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, essentially there's a lot of UCG and then other stuff.
Exactly.
Interactivity between players. But now you answered as a designer, obviously, which makes perfect sense. But let's see what we can. So if more game teams dare to let loose, it's a lot of that is a design question. Then how would the other disciplines either need to adapt or could contribute to something like that, you think?
I think most of it is going back to some authority with information. Is like I think that a lot of programmers know how to approach these types of things. I think that a lot of artists would love to make things modular. I think that I think there's already a lot of this competence out there. It's just that the less collaborative sort of structures that some companies have, it's not really letting it go, right? So but I mean, in terms of mentality, I think it's the huge downside of that type of work is that it can take a lot of time before it's good.
Yeah. So do you think companies that don't have this approach or mindset, is it mostly a size thing or something else?
I think it's actually design heritage to an extent. There was a great comment, I think, by Mike Bithell on Twitter a few years ago, where he said something like, the game design as a craft has 5 years of lifetime, basically. So most people are talking about the hits from the past 5 years. Anything older than that, or anything sort of outside of those 5 years, is going to be lost into the noise. And I think that is actually a problem for game design, because in the past 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of linear games, a lot of production quality focus, a lot of, a friend of them, Sony likes, God of War, The Last of Us, these types of games. Great games, extremely high production values, also super expensive to make.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they don't really get played by the Minecraft generation. So basically, looking back to what SimCity, all of these really systemic games, I think there's so much design heritage that we forgot. And especially if you studied game design in the past 5 years, you never had those in your frame of reference.
No, that's a good point. So maybe it's time to go back and pick up some old stuff.
I mean, definitely rediscover. I was thinking about this when I was playing Roblox games with my kids, because they play a lot of Roblox games, and they were playing some market game. You grew tomatoes and you made ketchup. It was,
Yeah.
and I realized when I was playing it, it's pretty much the same system that Ultima used. Like Ultima 7 of these systemic games, when you baked bread, you mixed flour and water that became dough, and then you made, I mean, like a simplified process of a thing. And that game is from '92. So the mentality is back. It's just that game development is slow to catch up with that kind of trend.
Yeah. I might be oversimplifying this, but isn't that just a crafting system, really?
I mean, absolutely, but
it's
just in the simplicity of the presentation and how it's portrayed, instead of like a full screen modal menu, it's a very simple in-world interaction, and it makes intuitive sense to some extent. And I think that is something Roblox, a lot of the really popular Roblox games are doing exactly that.
Yeah.
So I was actually really happy. Like, wow, they're playing Ultima. It's just not Ultima, obviously.
Yeah, but it can make them proud and happy in the background, passively.
And feeling.
Yeah, that's also part of the game. So, do you have any hobbies or other interests outside of work that you think makes you, for example, a better collaborator?
I mean, I think that when it comes to conflicts, maybe I used to do martial arts stuff, and that calms you quite a bit. Like, I mean, you do that yourself.
Yeah.
And then I actually think that is very good. Like, it's a good outlet. So you don't actually, I mean, there's no tension. There's no, you don't have to be angry. It doesn't matter that much. Like, I actually think that gave me a lot. Going in, it's 20 years since I did it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it stays, but it's not the first. You're not the first guest who's talked about that.
Yeah. No, and tabletop old games is also a huge deal for me. Like I also collaborative, also writing, also, but it's pretty much work, out in other forms.
Yeah. You made your own game as well. Right?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Bargains and Bloodshed.
Bargains and Bloodshed. Yeah.
It's because I wanted to explore sword and sorcery, Conan, Elric stuff.
Yeah, and then you had some card game as well.
Yeah, but that's gonna be released at some point.
Okay, so
it's been
you can talk about
it's been in the work since 2017, but yeah, it's a demonic pact thing.
Yeah. Well, you could come back and talk about it if you want at some point.
That'd be awesome.
Last question: who would you love to see on the show?
Who would I like to see on the show? I would like to see some of the old icons on the show, if possible. I mean, Doug Church or, Randy Smith, so these like Looking Glass heroes that I have. Someone like that.
Okay.
I'd love to see.
Yeah, I can't make any promises, but we'll try.
No, and I mean, I wouldn't know them personally either, so.
But we'll do what we can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Martin. And if anyone wants to find out more information about you, and what you do.
What I do, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. Martin Annander, and I write a systemic design blog every month at playtank.io, which has been a perfect outlet to just figure all this letting go stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be the places.
Okay, so we can put a link in the show notes if anyone's interested. Perfect. Anything else you want to plug while you're here?
Not really. I mean, I just think this is great. I think it's awesome to get a chance to just chat and to finally plug systemic design.
Yeah. Go systemic design.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here.
Always a pleasure.